My mother humiliated my daughter. On her 18th birthday, she gave her a $15 bracelet and said, "Your daughter gets scraps. My real granddaughter gets the Jeep." Then she handed my niece a brand new Jeep Wrangler. When I saw my daughter's smile break, I stood up and said, "Give back the bracelet, take the real keys." Then I handed her the keys to a fully paid Mustang GT. My mother's face went pale. When the dealer walked in, holding one more envelope. The bracelet was still in its plastic display case when my mother set it down in front of Sage. Not a jewelry box, not tissue paper, not a gift bag with ribbon. A clear plastic hinge case, the kind they stock at pharmacy checkout counters between the lip balm and the travel tissues, with a yellow price sticker still visible on the bottom left corner. $15. I could read the number from 3 seats away. So could everyone else at the table, and there were 23 of them. Sage picked it up and smiled. Not the smile she uses when she is happy. The smile she has been practicing since she was 11. The one she puts on at family gatherings when Claudia, my mother, gives her something that says exactly what Claudia has always believed about her worth. Sage is very good at that smile now. She was turning 18 years old, and she was already an expert at absorbing insults without letting her hands shake. She learned it from me. I learned it from growing up in Claudia's house. The skill passes down like a gene nobody asked for. 23 people were at the table. It was a joint birthday dinner at Marchetti's, the Italian restaurant on Davis Avenue with the private dining room in the back. Sage and my niece Bryn were both turning 18 the same week. Claudia booked the dinner and told everyone it made sense to celebrate together. What she meant was that it made sense to celebrate them side by side so that every person in the room could measure the difference and understand it as a natural law. Bryn opened her gift first, a small envelope with a card and a key chain inside. She read the card, covered her mouth, and looked at her mother, my sister Tabitha. Tabitha smiled the smile of a woman who had known for 3 weeks what was inside that envelope and had spent those 3 weeks choosing her outfit for the moment. Claudia stood up from her chair. She smoothed her ivory blouse and adjusted the pearl necklace she wore to every event where she intended to be the center of attention. She held up a set of keys with a red bow tied around the ring and let them catch the overhead light, turning them slowly so the metal flashed. "Bryn, sweetheart, you have worked so hard this year. You were going to state in January, and your grandfather would have been so proud of the young woman you have become. This is from me and from his memory." She walked around the table, not the short way, the long way, past every guest, so that each person saw the keys before Bryn did. Then she placed them in Bryn's hand and closed Bryn's fingers around them. "There is a brand new Jeep Wrangler in the parking lot, Arctic White, $46,800, paid for." The room erupted. Tabitha clapped with both hands above her head. Willis, my brother-in-law, raised his glass and said something about next generation driving. Claudia's church friends applauded. Bryn's 2 friends from school were shrieking and pulling out their phones to record. A man at the next table in the restaurant turned to watch through the glass partition. The noise filled the private dining room and bounced off the dark wood paneling and the framed photographs of someone else's Italian grandparents. Then the noise stopped because everyone looked at Sage. Sage was sitting at the far end of the table, holding the plastic case with the $15 bracelet. She had not opened it yet. Her thumb was resting on the hinge. The case was so light it barely made a sound when she set it back on the tablecloth. Claudia turned to me. She had been waiting for this. Not the gift, the speech, the ranking, the public declaration that would make permanent what she had been building for 18 years. And she delivered it the way she delivers everything, with the steady calm of a woman who believes cruelty is the same thing as honesty. Sage is a sweet girl, Meredith. But let us be honest about what we are looking at. Bryn is going to state on a scholarship. Sage is going to community college because you in Sterling could not save enough for anything better. Your daughter gets scraps because your side of the family gives scraps. Tabitha married a man with a career. You married a man who sells alternators. I am not going to pretend both granddaughters earned the same gift when one of them earned a future and the other one is still figuring out how to show up on time." Nobody spoke. The waitstaff, who had just brought the cake on a rolling cart, backed out of the room without lighting the candles. Dolores Medina, Claudia's church friend of 30 years, set her wine glass down on the table and did not pick it up again. Willis studied the tablecloth like it contained instructions for what to do next. Tabitha pressed her lips together and looked at Bryn's keys instead of at Sage's face. Sterling, my husband, started to stand. I put my hand on his forearm. Not yet. I looked at my daughter. Her smile was still in place, but it was breaking, not all at once, in pieces. The corners fell first, then the center softened, then her chin dipped a quarter inch and her eyes filled but did not spill. It was like watching a windshield crack in slow motion, the kind of break that starts at one point and branches outward until the whole surface is held together only by the film underneath. She was 18 years old, and she was watching her grandmother explain to a room full of people that she was worth $15 and a plastic hinge case. I almost left the table, but the sealed envelope in my purse pressed against my hip, and I thought about my father's handwriting inside it, words he wrote 6 years ago for this exact day, and I stayed in my chair, because Forrest Pennington did not raise me to walk away from a fight I had already won. I stood up. "Sage, give back the bracelet." Sage looked at me. Her eyes were wet, but her hands were steady. She set the case back on the table. "Take the real keys." I reached into my jacket pocket and set a set of car keys on the tablecloth in front of her, a black leather fob with a chrome Mustang on the face. "There is a fully paid Mustang GT in the parking lot, magnetic gray. Your name is on the title. $39,500, 3 years of saving. Nobody's charity, nobody's scraps." Sage picked up the keys. Her hand was shaking, but she was not crying. She turned the fob over in her palm and traced the horse with her index finger. Claudia's face went white, not pale, white. The blood left her cheeks, then her forehead, then her lips, in that order, like someone had opened a drain she did not know she had. If you are new here, welcome to Family Secret Tales. This is the story of how my mother stole from my daughter's future to buy her favorite granddaughter a car, and what happened when I found out, because stealing from children is what I catch people doing for a living. My father, Forrest Pennington, died 6 years ago. Pancreatic cancer, 11 weeks from diagnosis to the end. He was 60 years old. He was a high school shop teacher who spent 40 years showing teenagers how to build things that work, and he spent his weekends building bookshelves in the garage and selling them at craft fairs for $80 each. He never sold anything for $100. He said 80 was the right price because it covered the lumber and the hardware, and it let him keep doing it without needing to be thanked. Forrest was the kind of man who labeled every drawer in his workshop with masking tape and a Sharpie. He kept receipts in a manila folder organized by month. He wrote birthday cards by hand, even for people he barely knew, because he believed that printed cards were for companies, not families. He was not wealthy, but he was deliberate. When Forrest said he was going to do something, the thing got done. When he said something was important, you could set a clock by it. He loved both his granddaughters, but Sage was the one who sat in his workshop and asked what the tools were called. She was the one who handed him sandpaper and counted screws and watched him root edges with a patience that most 10-year-olds do not have for anything that does not involve a screen. Forrest called her my sunrise. He called Bryn sweetheart. Both were real, but Sage was the one who stayed in the garage until the sawdust settled. In 2018, when Sage was 10, Forrest opened a savings account at First Regional Credit Union. Account number 4471308. Initial deposit $25,000. That was 31 years of shop teaching and 800 bookshelves, folded into a single number on a bank receipt that he photocopied and taped inside his workshop drawer. He named Sage as the beneficiary. He added Claudia as custodial co-signer because Sage was a minor and Forrest wanted a second adult with access in case something happened to both me and Sterling. He chose Claudia because she was his wife. He trusted her the way people trust foundations. He never considered that the foundation would move. When Forrest died, he gave me a sealed envelope in the hospital, white, standard size, my daughter's name written on the front in his handwriting. The same handwriting that labeled every bookshelf, every drawer pull, every report card comment he stayed up late to finish. He held my hand and said, "Give this to Sage on her 18th birthday. Not before. Do not open it." His grip was weak, but his voice was not. I put the envelope in my dresser drawer underneath a stack of winter scarves. It stayed there for 6 years. I never opened it. I never held it up to the light. My father asked me to keep a promise, and I kept it. After Forrest died, I started contributing $200 a month to Sage's account. Every month for 6 years, 72 deposits, $1,400 of my own money on top of Forrest's $25,000. With accumulated interest, the balance reached $42,200 by September 2026. I checked it every January. The number grew the way Sage grew, slowly, steadily, without needing anyone to approve of it. Claudia knew about the account. She was custodial co-signer. She had full withdrawal authority because the account predated any concerns about what she might do with it, and she never once mentioned the account after Forrest's funeral. Not once. Not in 6 years. I took the silence as respect. It was not respect. It was planning. The favoritism was not new. It was the architecture of my family, load-bearing, invisible to everyone inside it, obvious to anyone standing outside. Tabitha was 2 years younger and had been the center of Claudia's attention since birth. Tabitha's school photos were framed on the mantel. Mine were in a drawer. Tabitha's achievements were announced at family dinners. Mine were mentioned in passing if someone else brought them up. When I got pregnant with Sage at 24, Claudia said, "Well, that is one way to close doors." She did not throw me a baby shower. Tabitha's coworker threw one for me at her apartment. 8 people came. When Tabitha married Willis Whitfield at 28 in a church ceremony with floral arrangements from a designer Claudia had driven 2 hours to hire, Claudia threw a reception for 140 people, with a string quartet and a 3-tier cake. When I married Sterling Harmon at 26 in the same church with wildflowers, I arranged myself. Claudia brought a store-bought sheet cake that said "Congratulations" in blue frosting, and she left before the toasts were finished. She said she had a headache. The headache cleared up in time for her to have dinner with Tabitha and Willis that same evening. Sterling runs an auto parts supply store on Route 11. He clears $71,000 a year. He wakes up at 5 every morning, and he built a tree house for Sage when she was 7 that is still standing and still level. He has never missed a mortgage payment, and he has never once made my daughter feel like she was anything less than the most important person in his day. Claudia refers to him as the alternator man, and once asked me at Thanksgiving, in front of Sage and Sterling both, if Sterling had considered going back to school for something real. Sterling ate his turkey and did not respond. He is a better person than I am in that specific way. When Sage was 13, she had her first lead role in a ballet recital at the Community Arts Center. She had practiced for 4 months, 3 evenings a week and Saturday mornings, stretching in the living room until Sterling started calling her the pretzel. Claudia promised to attend. She told Sage she would be in the 3rd row. The morning of the recital, Claudia called and said she could not make it because Bryn had a soccer playoff across town. "Bryn needs me there, honey. You understand." Sage stood in the wings in her white tutu, hair pinned with a rhinestone clip I spent 20 minutes getting right, and she looked at the audience 4 times before the music started. The first time she was searching. The second time she was hoping. The third time she was checking. The fourth time she stopped looking. She danced the entire performance without checking the audience again. That was the smaller betrayal. The proof that in Claudia's arithmetic, Bryn always equaled more. and the difference was never going to close no matter how many recitals Sage earned. 3 weeks before the birthday party, a Jeep Wrangler loan application landed on my desk at the credit union. I am an auto loan compliance officer at First Regional Credit Union. My job is to review loan applications for fraud, verify funding sources, and flag transactions where the money trail does not match the paperwork. I review between 15 and 25 files per week. Most of them are clean. The ones that are not clean usually involve someone using money that does not belong to them to buy something they want to pretend they earned. The Jeep application was filed by Tabitha Whitfield as primary buyer. Claudia Pennington was listed as co-signer. The vehicle was a 2027 Jeep Wrangler Sport. Arctic White, sticker price $46,800. The down payment was $38,000 in cash, presented via cashier's check. The remaining $8,800 was financed over 36 months. The down payment source was verified as account 4471308 at First Regional Credit Union. I read the account number twice. Then I pulled the full account history on my second monitor and read it a third time. Then I set both hands flat on my desk and held them there until the tingling in my fingers stopped and the pressure behind my eyes turned from heat to focus. Account 4471308 was Sage's savings account. On September 3rd, 5 weeks before the birthday dinner, a withdrawal of $38,000 had been processed. Authorized by the custodial co-signer, Claudia Pennington, the withdrawal left a remaining balance of $4,200. 6 years of Forrest's saving, 6 years of my $200 monthly deposits, reduced to a number that would not cover a semester of textbooks at the community college Claudia had just mocked Sage for attending. I sat at my desk and I thought about Forrest in the hospital bed. I thought about his hand holding mine, the sealed envelope between us, the way his voice stayed clear even when his body was leaving. He made me promise to give Sage the letter on her 18th birthday. He did not make me promise to protect the account because he believed Claudia would do it. He believed the custodial co-signer he married would honor the account he opened for the granddaughter who sat in his workshop and counted screws. He believed that because Forrest measured everything in his life accurately except for the people who would outlive him. My mother had drained my daughter's savings to buy a car for my niece. She took the money my father set aside for his sunrise and used it to prove in front of 23 people that Bryn was the real granddaughter and Sage was the afterthought who deserved a plastic bracelet. I closed the loan file. I locked my workstation. I walked to Opal Ramsey's office at the end of the hall and closed the door behind me. Opal is the branch manager at First Regional. She has been my mentor for 9 years. She hired me as a teller when Sage was 9 years old and trained me through every certification until I landed in compliance. She is 53 years old and she has never once raised her voice at work, and she has never once let a fraudulent transaction pass her desk without documentation. Opal, I need you to look at something. I handed her the file. She read the loan application. She pulled up the account history on her own screen. She looked at me over her reading glasses. This is your daughter's account. Yes. And the custodial co-signer withdrew $38,000 to fund a vehicle down payment for a different family member's purchase. My niece. My mother is the co-signer. Opal set the file down and took off her reading glasses. She set them on the desk next to a framed photo of her own granddaughter and looked at me for a long moment. Meredith, this is going to the Fraud Review Committee. I cannot unsee it, and neither can you. As a compliance officer, you have a reporting obligation. As a mother, you have something else. Both of those things are pointing in the same direction. She paused. I have worked in banking for 27 years. I have seen parents drain children's accounts for gambling debts, medical bills, and bad business deals. This is the first time I have seen someone drain a child's account to buy a different child a car. I am flagging it today. I thanked her. She waved the thanks off the way she always does, by looking at the file instead of at me. But when I got to the door, she said, Meredith, your father set up that account right. Beneficiary named. purpose documented. He built it the way he built everything. It will hold. I almost called Claudia that night. The number was in my phone. My thumb was on the screen. I was sitting on the edge of Sage's bed after she fell asleep, looking at the dresser drawer where Forrest's letter had been waiting for 6 years, and I wanted to call my mother and say things that would have felt good for 30 seconds and ruined everything I was building. But the account statement printout was on my kitchen table downstairs, and the numbers on it were not a family argument. They were evidence. I had spent 9 years learning that evidence does not survive phone calls. It survives paper trails. Forrest would have said the same thing. Measure twice. Cut once. Do not cut before you are ready. The next morning, I called Royce Ashworth. Royce is the finance director at Lehman Motors, the Jeep dealership where the Wrangler was purchased. I identified myself as a compliance officer from the credit union that financed the loan and requested the dealer's copy of the down payment verification and funding source documentation under our standard interinstitutional review process. Royce pulled the file within an hour. The down payment check was drawn on account 4471308, Royce confirmed. Cashier's check presented by Claudia Pennington in person on September 5th. We verified the funds with your institution that same day. I asked Royce if he would be willing to provide a certified copy of the loan application, the down payment verification, and the dealer's funding source memo. He agreed. I asked him to seal it in an envelope and hold it. I may need it delivered. In person. Where to? A birthday party. Royce was quiet for a moment. In 30 years of auto finance, I have not done that before, but I will be there. I bought the Mustang GT on September 20th, a certified pre-owned 2024 model, magnetic gray metallic, 23,000 miles, clean title, $39,500, cash. I paid with money from a separate savings account Claudia did not know about and had never had access to. I had started that account 3 years earlier, the month after Claudia told Sage at a family dinner that she should consider trade school because not everyone is built for a classroom. That was the night I started saving for something Sage was going to need when the ranking finally went public. I did not know the ranking would take the shape of a $15 bracelet and a Jeep Wrangler. I just knew it was coming because Claudia had spent 18 years building toward a moment when the math would be spoken out loud. Sterling came with me to the dealership. He wore his work jacket with the Auto Parts logo on the chest. The jacket Claudia had once told me looked like a uniform for someone who delivers packages. He stood next to the Mustang in the lot and put his hand flat on the hood, the same way he tests engine blocks at the store, feeling for the quality under the surface. She's going to cry, he said. She is going to drive, I said. He handed me the keys after the paperwork was signed and kissed the side of my head and did not say anything else, because Sterling has always understood that the right words for big moments are no words at all. I called Royce one more time that week. I told him the party was October 8th at Marchetti's. Private dining room. He said he would be there at 7:45 with the envelope. I thanked him. He said, "Do not thank me. Thank your father. He is the one who put the right name on the right account." If you have been following this story and you feel the weight of what is coming, subscribe to Family Secret Tales and stay with me. Because the birthday party was not over. Claudia was still standing. The Mustang keys were on the table. Sage was holding them. The room was divided between the people looking at Sage and the people looking at Claudia. Nobody was looking at the bracelet. It sat in its plastic case on the white tablecloth like a piece of evidence from a crime nobody had reported yet. Claudia recovered. She always recovers. She has spent 66 years recovering from the truth by replacing it with a version of herself that sounds better. A Mustang. She let out a short laugh, the kind that asks the room to laugh with her. Nobody did. Meredith, you cannot afford a Mustang. What did you finance? What did you put on a credit card? Are you going to make Sage pay the insurance on a car you are going to lose to the bank in 6 months? I paid cash. $39,500, 3 years of saving, no loan, no credit card, no one else's money. I let the words sit. Then I turned to face her fully. But the question tonight is not how I paid for Sage's car, Mom. The question is how you paid for Bryn's. The room changed. Not a sound shift, a gravity shift. The air tightened and the people at the table leaned back slightly, the way people lean when they sense something structural is about to move. The Jeep Wrangler cost $46,800. The down payment was $38,000. That down payment was withdrawn from account 4471308 at First Regional Credit Union on September 3rd. I did not look away from Claudia. That account was opened in 2018 by Forrest Pennington, your husband, my father, the man you quoted 10 minutes ago when you said Grandpa would be proud. The beneficiary listed on the account is Sage Renee Harmon, my daughter, the girl you just handed a $15 bracelet in a plastic case. Claudia's mouth opened and closed. Her hands went to the edge of the table. That money was family money, Meredith. Your father left it for the family. I used it for the family. You used it for Bryn. Sage is also family. Sage is the person whose name is on the account. You were custodial co-signer, not owner, not beneficiary. You had access because Dad trusted you to protect it, and you used that access to take $38,000 from the granddaughter you call Scraps and buy a Jeep for the granddaughter you call Real. Tabitha's face went still. She turned to Claudia. Mom, you told me the down payment came from Dad's estate account. You said it was your money to spend. It was family money, Tabitha. Your father wanted both girls taken care of. He wanted Sage taken care of. I kept my voice flat. That is why her name is on the account, and I can prove exactly where every dollar went, because tracing where car money comes from is what I do every day at work. The door to the private dining room opened. Royce Ashworth walked in wearing a navy blazer and carrying a manila envelope. He had driven 22 minutes from Lehman Motors. He nodded at the waitstaff, who stepped aside without being asked, because something about the way a man in a blazer carries an envelope into a family dinner tells you the evening has changed shape. He looked at me. I nodded. My name is Royce Ashworth. I am the finance director at Lehman Motors. He set the envelope on the table in front of Claudia, next to the bracelet case that nobody had touched since Sage put it down. This envelope contains the dealer's copy of the Jeep Wrangler loan application, the down payment verification, and the funding source memo. He kept his hands at his sides. The down payment of $38,000 was presented by Claudia Pennington via cashier's check drawn on account 4471308 at First Regional Credit Union. The account is registered to a beneficiary named Sage Renee Harmon. The fund verification was processed on September 5th, 2026. Willis pushed his chair back from the table. His face lost 2 shades. He looked at Tabitha. You told me your mother was covering the down payment from her own savings, her personal savings. Tabitha did not answer. She was staring at the envelope. Dolores Medina picked up her purse from the back of her chair and walked out of the private dining room without saying goodbye. She left a full glass of wine and an untouched piece of cake. Another woman, Claudia's neighbor from 2 streets over, followed her out 30 seconds later. You called Sterling a man who sells alternators. I did not raise my voice. Sterling wakes up at 5 every morning and runs a business that employs 4 people and has never bounced a check. You called Sage a girl who cannot show up on time. Sage has held a 3.4 GPA while working weekends at the bookstore to pay for her own application fees. You called my side of the family the side that gives scraps. My side of the family is the side that saved $39,000 in cash and never stole a dollar from a child to prove a point at a dinner table. I paused. The room was silent. Not the performative silence of shock. The real silence of people understanding that what they are watching cannot be undone. You took $42,000 that my dying father saved from 31 years of teaching. High school shop and building $80 bookshelves. He opened that account for Sage. He named Sage. He trusted you to keep it safe. You drained $38,000 of it and handed my daughter a bracelet from a pharmacy and called it an honest accounting. That is theft. That is misuse of custodial authority. And the credit union's fraud review committee has had the file for 2 weeks. Claudia's right hand went to her chest. She pressed her palm against her collarbone, and her breathing turned quick and shallow. My heart, Meredith, you are going to kill me right here. Your father would be ashamed of you for this. He would never have wanted you to air this in public. Tabitha, call someone. Call an ambulance. I cannot breathe. Nobody reached for a phone. Sterling did not move. Willis did not move. Even Tabitha, who had spent her whole life answering Claudia's distress calls, sat still and stared at the envelope on the table. I did not respond to the performance. I reached into my purse and pulled out the sealed envelope. White, standard size, my daughter's name written on the front in Forrest's handwriting. The ink was 6 years old. The paper was soft from years in a drawer. Sage's name had not faded. Your grandfather wrote this for your 18th birthday, Sage. He gave it to me when he was dying and asked me to keep it sealed until today. I placed it in her hands. Open it. Sage broke the seal with her thumb. She unfolded a single sheet of lined paper, the kind Forrest used for shop class grading rubrics, the kind with the wide margins where he drew small diagrams of joints and angles. His handwriting filled both sides, small, careful letters, the handwriting of a man who measured twice and wrote once. Sage read silently. Her lips moved on some words and stopped on others. I watched her eyes travel the page, and I saw the moment she reached the part about the account. Her jaw tightened. Her chin lifted. She looked nothing like the girl who had smiled at a plastic bracelet 20 minutes ago. Then she stopped at one passage and read it out loud. Not because anyone asked, because some sentences are too heavy to hold alone, and some sentences need to be heard by the person who broke the promise they describe. This money is for your future, Sage. Account 404-71308. I started it when you were 10 because you told me you wanted to learn how things work. Nobody decides your worth except you. Not your grandmother, not your aunt, not the world, just you. The room heard it. Every person at that table heard a dead man's handwriting name, the account, name the granddaughter, and warn her about the people who would try to decide for her. Dad left $42,000 for Sage. You took it. You bought Bryn a Jeep with it, and you handed Sage a $15 bracelet. Claudia sat down, not gracefully. She dropped into her chair, and her hands went flat on the table the way a person's hands go flat when the only solid thing left in the room is the surface underneath them. Her face was gray. Her collarbone was blotched with red. She tried to speak and stopped. Tried again. Her voice was smaller than I'd ever heard it. We can fix this. I will put the money back. I will pay it back over time. It was a misunderstanding. I thought the account was shared. It was not shared. Sage's name is the only beneficiary name on the paperwork. You knew that because you signed the custodial agreement. Claudia looked at Tabitha. Tabitha would not meet her eyes. Claudia looked at Willis. Willis was staring at the envelope like it was a document he was going to have to explain to his own attorney. Meredith, please. We are family. We can discuss this at home. Not here, not in front of everyone. You ranked my daughter in front of everyone, Mom. You called her scraps in front of everyone. You can hear the truth in front of them, too. I did what I thought was best for this family. You did what you thought Tabitha's daughter deserved, and you paid for it with what my father saved for mine. That is not a family decision. That is theft with a dinner reservation. Mom, my voice dropped. This is the last birthday, the last holiday, the last dinner table you share with my daughter. You do not get to rank Sage against Bryn in public or in private. You do not get to use Dad's name while spending Dad's money on the child you chose over the child he chose. The credit union is sending a demand letter for $38,000. If you do not repay it, they will refer the matter to the county prosecutor for misuse of fiduciary authority. That is not my decision. That is institutional process. I almost walked out without looking back, but Sage was still holding the letter with both hands, and her face was not broken anymore. It was open, like a window someone finally pushed up after years of paint, holding it shut. So I waited. She folded the letter carefully, put it in her jacket pocket, picked up the Mustang keys, and stood. We left together. Sterling held the door. If this story hit you somewhere real, share it with someone who needs to hear it and subscribe to Family Secret Tales. The Fraud Review Committee at First Regional completed its assessment on October 14th. Claudia received a formal demand letter for the full $38,000, hand-delivered by certified mail to the house Forrest built the front porch on. The letter stated that the custodial withdrawal was used for an undisclosed third-party vehicle purchase, unrelated to the beneficiary's welfare, and that failure to repay within 60 days would result in referral to the county prosecutor's office for misuse of fiduciary authority. Claudia's attorney called the credit union on day 31 and requested an extension. The extension was granted for 30 additional days at 6.8% annual interest. The money was not Claudia's. The institution intended to recover every dollar of it. The Jeep Wrangler's financing was placed under review on October 18th. The credit union sent a formal notice to Tabitha and Willis stating that the down payment source was under active fraud investigation and that the loan terms were suspended pending resolution. The Jeep sat in Tabitha's driveway for 3 weeks without moving. Bryn stopped posting about it. Willis called Claudia once. She did not answer. He called Tabitha's attorney the next day. By early November, Willis had retained his own lawyer, not for the Jeep, for the marriage. The cost of the car Claudia bought with someone else's money was now being measured in something larger than dollars. Claudia's church group stopped calling, not all at once. In the way things stop when the reason is too clear for anyone to pretend they do not know. Dolores Medina, who had walked out of the restaurant, did not return Claudia's calls for the first week. The second week, she sent a text that said, "I think you need to talk to someone, Claudia, not me." The pastor's wife, who had been at the dinner table when Claudia delivered the scraps line, mentioned the evening to 2 other women in the Wednesday Bible study. She did not editorialize. She did not have to. By the end of October, Claudia's name was no longer on the Christmas Bazaar Planning Committee. Nobody voted to remove her. The new committee list was simply printed without her name on it. The list was posted in the church fellowship hall on a Friday. By Sunday, everyone had seen it. Nobody asked why. Tabitha unfriended me on every platform within 48 hours of the party. She did not text again after the first message, which said, "You could have told me privately." I read it once. I did not respond. She had been sitting at that table while her mother handed Sage a plastic bracelet and called her worth $15. She had known about the Jeep for 3 weeks and had not questioned the source. She could have asked privately, too. She did not. She clapped instead. On a Tuesday evening in late October, Claudia was sitting at her kitchen table with the demand letter open in front of her. I know, because Sterling drove past the house on his way to a supplier run and saw the dining room light on through the curtains. He slowed down without meaning to. The kitchen window was uncovered. Claudia was alone. A calculator sat next to the letter on the left side of the table. A cup of tea had gone cold near her right hand. The chair across from her, the one Forrest used to sit in when he graded shop class papers after dinner and sketched the next bookshelf on graph paper, was empty. It had been empty for 6 years. But on this night, it looked emptier than usual, because the person who would have told Claudia she was wrong was the same person whose money she had spent. Claudia was wearing the reading glasses Forrest had bought her the last Christmas before the diagnosis, thin gold frames from a shop on Main Street that closed 2 years later. She was looking at numbers on the demand letter that had no version of themselves that added up to anything she could fix on a fixed income. She did not pick up the phone. There was no one left to call who would listen to the version of the story where she was the reasonable one. On October 20th, Sage signed the title transfer for the Mustang GT at Lehman Motors. Royce processed the final paperwork. He shook Sage's hand across the desk and said, "Your mother paid cash for this car. That is not something I see every week." Sage thanked him. She did not say much else because she is her grandfather's granddaughter, and Forrest never used 3 words when one would do. We walked to the parking lot at closing time. The dealership lights were clicking on overhead, those tall sodium lamps that turn everything amber in the October dark. The Mustang was parked in the first row, magnetic gray metallic. The air had the bite of a season that was done pretending to be summer. Sage sat in the driver's seat with the door open. She pulled the letter from her jacket pocket and set it on the dashboard, facing the windshield. Forrest's handwriting caught the lot light through the glass. She traced one line with her fingertip, the line with the account number, the line that said, "Nobody decides your worth except you." I leaned against the passenger door with my arms crossed. The engine was off. The keys were in Sage's right hand. Inside Marchetti's restaurant, 12 days and a lifetime behind us, the $15 bracelet was still in a trash can near the service entrance, still in its plastic case, still with the yellow price sticker. Not even worth throwing away with conviction. Sage put the key in the ignition and turned it. The engine caught, low and solid, the sound of something built to last longer than the people who try to tell you what you are worth. Neither of us spoke. The lot lights hummed. Forrest's handwriting held steady against the glass. The bracelet stayed where it belonged. The car ran.